Welcome csc200. This is ex6 Python Connect, and this is a little in-between exercise that we're going to do before we start working with PHP. Since we're working in Python Anywhere right now, and we're going to be switching from that, I thought it'd be nice to work with some Python a little bit. Python is known more for working with no SQL databases. Actually, if you've ever heard of MongoDB, which they're more JSON-like, which I think we talked about a little bit in the early videos, but we're going to work with MySQL a little bit in Python Anywhere, and we're just going to use some Python code to connect to our database. So we're not going to be working directly with our console, but we are going to be going through Python to do that. Now, with PHP, we'll be able to display web pages and use HTML, but we can't really do that with Python right now. So that's why this will be a quick little exercise just to try it out. And if you go to W3 Schools and look for Python MySQL, I'm just clicking on the Get Started here. They have all kinds of instructions here, and we're going to copy some code and just work with that a little bit. And in Python Anywhere, if I go back here, I'm going to make a file. So I'll go to my files, and I might have a couple things open. So I might open my databases as well. So I might go here and right-click and open that in a new tab as well. So I have my files open. And if you want to, you can create a new directory. I did this for you last time, but I'm going to go inside databases. And remember, we had an ex5 directory there. I'm going to make another new directory and give it a name. I'll just call it ex6. And we could just call it Python Connect. Remember, this is just a folder name. So that's going to be our directory. And it's inside our databases directory. And we're going to make a file. And we'll just call this ex6 Python Connect. And it's going to be .py. It's going to be a Python file. And again, it's in this directory. So we're going to hit New File. And this will look similar to what we were doing in the past, except we're going to be typing in Python instead of SQL over here. And we're going to have a console open up once we start to connect. Now, if we go to Python SQL, the first thing you have to do is import a module that's able to connect to MySQL. And there's a couple of them. There's py MySQL, but we're going to use this one because this is the one they're using here, and there's documentation for it, so that's going to make it a little bit easier. So I could start off with this. And right off the bat, if it's installed and ready to be used, you could use this. So you can check it out just by copying this thing and go into your code here, and then just save your code. And then you're going to run your Python code because you're going to have a run button here. So we're going to run it, and we'll just run it like that. And as long as you don't have errors, you should be connecting. Now, it's not going to show you anything yet, but as long as you don't get errors, we got a prompt there, that means we're connecting. So that's okay. So we're off to a good start. And then we're going to go down here and create a connection. And we could start off with this. They even have like a print, so you could kind of print your connection. So I'm going to copy this, and I don't need this because I already have that. And I'll go back to my file here. And we're also going to do something very similar to this when we work with PHP. But what we're doing here is we're creating a variable called mydb, and it's basically using this connect function, mysql.connector.connect. So we're using a variable to represent that, so we don't have to keep writing this and we don't have to put it inside anything. And this will connect to our database. And because we're working inside Python Anywhere, we'll be able to use our information inside here to connect to the same database. So we'll be connecting online, but we'll be connecting to our database. If you go over here to your settings, this is where you're going to see your host address, which is your username with Python Anywhere. This whole host address is going to be your host. Sometimes you'll see that as localhost and things like that, but we're going to use that when we're in Python Anywhere. So I'm going to change localhost and put that. And these names with mysql.connector, these names have to stay like that. You can't put whatever you want, like PW. You need to keep them like that. So I'm going to put that for my host name, and then my username is the one I created when I made my Python Anywhere. So I'll put that in here. So that's where you're going to replace your username, which is in quotes, and then your password, which I think we all used mysql admin. I think that's what we used when we created our database, and if not, we'll have to fix that. And then you could also connect to your database as well. But let's see what happens here if we save this, and I'm going to run it. And it looks like it's okay so far, but we're still not seeing anything. This isn't very exciting. It's just connecting the connect. If you see that, that's actually what it's printing up here. It's just kind of printing the connection to it. So let's try to do a little bit more here. Let's go down and let's look at select statements. We're not going to create a database because we already have them. We're not going to create any tables right now. We don't necessarily have to, but let's just do some select statements so we could see some stuff. So you can see there's some more code here. This is the first select statement that comes up here. And again, this is just running basic queries is all we're doing. And what I'm going to do here is I'll copy everything. We already have our connection here, and I could even copy from here down because we're using our database. And I'll copy from here down because remember, we only had 3. We only had password, username, and localhost, our host name. So I'm going to copy this and go back here and copy it all over this stuff here. Now just remember, looks like they're using 2 spaces. If we have 4 now, you're going to have to put a comma here. So I'll put a comma here, and then I don't think we need a semicolon because I copied that. So you don't need a comma at the end. You just need a comma between all these. So we now have a database. Now, whatever database you want to connect to, you're going to put in here for my database. So if you want to use your states or your presidents or whatever you want to use, I'll use states because that's the last one we were working with. So I'll go over here and just put in states. And remember, it's your database name, not a table name, anything like that. I'll just put states, and we had used lowercase to make that. And so this is basically our connection script somewhat. It's a function that has all the information we need to connect to that database. And PHP does that. All languages will do that to connect to the database. That's what keeps them secure, so everybody can't get into the database. And usually things like Python or PHP, they're secure so people cannot see that code. It's not going to be like just showing up in the HTML when you view the source. So this is going to be hidden from the user, and that's the idea of why it's secure. So some of this code here, it's just variables that represent other things. Some of these, they have to be here. There's my cursor equals mydb.cursor. That's something that is actually needed to actually get information from the database. So some of these things are very standard. My cursor.execute, that's kind of the main executing engine that's going to make this work. And this is, you can see this here, that's where you can just put queries in there. And this my result equals my cursor fetch all, what that's going to do, it's going to get everything from there. It's going to keep running through this, so it gives you more than just one line of code. It'll look through the records, which is what fetch all will do from here. And notice here, there's also a loop. This is a for loop where they're just using X to represent, to go through all those records and return whatever we want from this original execution. You're not familiar with this, you don't have to worry about it that much right now. All that you have to be familiar with is that we're going to write a query right here. So we're not going to use customers. If you just wanted to print out everything from states, because remember, this is a table, so you wouldn't use customers here. You would actually use states like the capital S, because we had a states table in here. So I'll try that out first and just see if this works from what we're using, even just with this kind of standard code here. And I saved it. Now I also have to run it. Now it will output here in the console, and I'm getting some errors here. And let me just check my code, unless I need this, unless I actually need it running, unless I actually need to log into this. Oh, I know what I did. If you'd see it saying our home, I have to put in the full name of the database. I just put in states here, and actually should be this. It should be this full name that's here. So let me put that in there, and now I'll save that again, and we should get rid of all these errors that are here. And now we're actually showing it. Now, it's not too exciting. It's actually down here. You can see everything's showing up down here. So there's our output. And again, what we're going to do with PHP is have this stuff show up on a web page and actually format it in a table. So looking at it down here is kind of boring. And that's why I'm not going to have you do too much with it. You could do as many or as little queries as you want. If you did something, I'll just have you do a couple here. You know, if you did something from, if you remember, if you did cities, you could put any kind of query in here. So if you did something from cities where, if we did something like where the state ID is, let's see, where's California on here? And it's 31, so I'm just going to say where the ID, and remember that's going to be the state ID inside that table. So inside the cities table, I think that was called state ID. Here it's called order ID, and in the cities table is called state ID without looking it up. Just kind of doing this off the top of my head here. So I'm going to do state underscore ID. I think that's how we did it. And I'm going to say equals, and I'll just put 31. And I think I can just have 31. I think we did it as an integer, so I don't necessarily have to put that in its own quotes. But notice that the whole query has to be in quotes, and we don't have to put semicolons in here. We should be okay without semicolons. So we should get 17 cities, that the state ID was 31, was California. So let's try this out. We'll save it again. And there's the 17 cities. It actually starts right here with Anaheim, so we need like a little break there or something before it starts outputting our information. But it's starting from Anaheim, and then it's going down to Stockton. So those are our 17 that are there. So like I said, this isn't a whole lot fun doing that, but I figured as long as we're kind of finishing up with Python Anywhere, we could check this out. Let's see if we can go up here and check out Texas. and just print out the Texas ones. Texas is number 28, so we'll print out Texas here. And I'll go at the bottom, and I'll just put some extra returns in there. And then I'll save it and run it again. And if you get this, just do force save. I'm not sure what it's doing here. Just run it again. And there it is. Did it leave didn't look like it left returns in there, but this is starting with Arlington. So it's starting with 81 Arlington and going through here and getting to San Antonio. So those are the Texas states. So that's all I'm going to do in here right now. I didn't come up with anything really interesting to do with this other than trying it out. So if I do have some other interesting things to do with this, with connecting through here, making new tables and all that, but I'd like to move on to the GORM, or actually move on to the amps, whatever's going to work out for us. But if you just do this, if you just save it, that's all you have to do. This is ex6. Again, it's just a real quick one, just to practice connecting. It's actually going to be a little introduction to what we're going to do to PHP. So that's all we're going to do here. So all you have to do is save it. Just put a comment that you have your ex6 python-connect.py file. Load it up in your Python anywhere, and I'll come and just check it out. And I'll run it myself. So you don't even have to copy any of this stuff. You could just leave your code in here. Just finish up with the Texas one, and then I'll just check it out and make sure your code's working okay. And then we'll move on to ex7.